I hope this doesn't have any negative backlash on my cred. Dragoncharm hilariously advertises itself as the ultimate dragon saga, which is tragic because absolutely no one knows what it is. I've always been wary of things that blatantly use unnecessary hyperbole, but what attracted to me to Dragoncharm was the fact that it looked like the only book worth reading in the $1 bin at the library in my high school. Whenever I need to read a lesser-known book to convince myself that I haven't yet turned into an elitist snob, I look to the discount bins because you will never find a range that lowers your expectations more, and why Dragoncharm stood out from the rest of the losers in its pile is that it boasted a story where the entire cast consisted of dragons. So ignoring the ultimate part, when it called itself a dragon saga it wasn't kidding, and it isn't some lame cop-out like the dragons are all secondary characters to humans or all the dragons are ridden by humans. No, the whole cast are dragons with absolutely no humans to be found in the novel at all. The protagonist, the antagonist, the dashing anti-hero, the mentor, the companions, the comedy relief, the love interest, all of them are dragons. But aside from that, the book doesn't have anything impressive to offer at all. It's a generic paint-by-numbers fantasy cavalcade through the wilderness to win a battle against darkness by joining forces with a bunch of good guys and aided by some unspecified magical entity that acts as the guardian of the world or something. The lore differentiates dragons into natural dragons, dragons that are not magical, don't breathe fire, live for only a few decades at maximum, and have leather membranes attached to their forelegs to act as wings, and charmed dragons, which have wings separate to their forelegs, breathe fire, cast magic, and live for thousands of years. It sounds like an interesting binary until you realize it's just another thinly disguised version of Tolkien's humans versus elves malarkey. Needless to say, you are probably wondering why I'm even talking about Dragoncharm if it's so generic and derivative, and you're right, it isn't anything in particularly special. My expectations were set extraneously low when I read it. I only picked it up because I was starved for a creative fantasy novel at the time and David Eddings wasn't satisfying me. But I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the book in the end. It's the good kind of B-grade fiction. Actually, it's more like C-grade fiction, but I'll stop degrading the novel for now and tell you what's good about it. First, the whole dragon facade is handled really well. When I picked it up, I expected a fantasy story with dragons, and that was exactly what I got. The tone and atmosphere is never broken, and having dragons fill in every single role is actually kinda cute. Second, the story conforms to everything a typical fantasy reader would want out of a decent light-hearted fantasy narrative. Sure, it doesn't do anything drastically original or impressive in any way at all, but as far as we are concerned with the hero's journey and all the other things that make an audience connect with a story, it has it. Third, whenever the C-grade fiction starts to look incredibly C-grade, it becomes rather endearing. I only found a few times when the low quality made it jarring to read. In fact, that really campy scene at the end, when the anti-hero redeems himself and has a final heart-to-heart with the protagonist on an ethereal plane, was so ridiculously over the top it actually put a smile on my face. Oh, spoilers, by the way. There was only one thing that stood out as unforgivably horrible to me, and that was the aforementioned love interest. If you hate forced romance subplots ordinarily, you will definitely hate forced romance subplots with dragons. Thankfully, it isn't too prevalent. It pops up some way into the novel, hangs around for a few chapters, and then disappears until after the climax is resolved. Also, some of the names of the characters are really hard to swallow. The main character is called Fortune, which is kinda stupid. The anti-hero is called Wood, which is really stupid. And the love interest is called Gossamer, which is... I keep my $1 copy of Dragoncharm on my bookshelf to remind me that while I catch up on over 2,000 years of the world's greatest and most influential literature, never to overlook the underdogs of the time, because it's likely that after this time they will never be read again. I tried tracking down the sequel because there is one, and I was never able to find it in any bookstore I looked, but when I hit the internet to find a copy, I discovered that there's a significant plot event in the sequel that threw me off so much I actually lost interest in reading it. But as for Dragoncharm as a standalone novel, if you want to know whether you should pick it up or not, just determine for yourself whether the premise of the cast consisting entirely of dragons interests you at all. If not, you can pass it up and you won't be missing out on anything in particularly special if you do, but if the premise does interest you, you will find an enjoyable, unchallenging, light-of-tone fantasy experience that can be both endearing and, dare I say it, quite charming at times. Oh, that was so stupid.